So I made a post today that Mary Elizabeth Glennan was going to join us. She's actually a member and
Yes.
she's been with us before, and it kind of blew everybody's mind. Everybody was like, wait, what? And so I have been following her. She's actually kind of local to me, even though we've never met. And she's working with other animals now, right?
I have worked with dogs and I'm working with dogs currently in my practice, but the megafauna, which is it, they will be part of a interspecies research project starting in 2026. So yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. I'm so happy for you.
Thank
So,
you.
so I am trying to pull up your bio. Hold on, give me a second. Um, so you're located, are you in Vacaville or are you closer to
I'm
Livermore?
just outside of Vacaville. You know where Rockville, Fairfield, Sassoon Valley is?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So you created this equine neurotherapy called somatic neurotherapy, and you've even trademarked it. Good for you.
Well, equine neurotherapy is its own field. It's under somatic neuroecology, which came after equine neurotherapy. So it's when I extended my studies and my work to humans, which is still in its early phases.
And then you have your company or your technique is called Soma Spira.
Soma Spirit is the company, the umbrella company that these fields are under. And then I have formed a research institute called Soma Spira.
That's
Yes.
amazing. Well, congratulations. We cannot wait to hear what you've been up to. So Mary Elizabeth, tell us how you got started in this. I know you're married to a farrier and you used to be a farrier.
Yeah, so I spent nearly 2 decades working with horses on different levels as a trainer. I grew up around horses. I grew up with an equine veterinarian as my uncle, and my dad, a scientist in agriculture. So horses were always a big part of my life. They were they were my social. I didn't do well socially with other children and things, so I spent a lot of time with horses. So, in a very hands-on way, I've been a trainer, and then I moved into being a farrier. And that was my first real feel for horses and their needs as far as rehabilitation, and that got me on the rehab track. So,
So
yeah,
you started seeing, I don't know about you, but I see so many train wrecks. And
yeah,
I've
yeah.
seen on your videos some pretty sad cases.
Yeah, I think it was it was a real a, a joke as far as some of my veterinary friends and everything. They said that I needed to put a sign up with a palm tree called the last resort when I started doing equine rehab because the field was so new. I wasn't a body worker. I wasn't a chiropractor. I wasn't using machines. I didn't have physical therapy protocols. They came around when they were on their last legs. And so for me, that meant instead of trying to prove the field, I challenged it. And so that was my early education. And there were complete miracles that occurred. And I did have my farrier experience. So I was pretty knowledgeable in remedial work as a farrier. I landed deep into laminitis and had a long go of that successfully. And so what it did was just continue building this field and the nervous system architecture that I was working with.
Cool.
So
And
yeah.
so you just started dabbling and experimenting. Were there any influences that you incorporated and you're like, hey, I've heard about this technique or that technique? Or did you just like, I'm just gonna try stuff?
Yeah, that's exactly how it happened. I know a lot of people want to correlate it with other techniques, but I really have had no training or any body work or chiropractic, or I was aware of them, but the real shift happened when I started noticing patterns in horses that didn't fit any existing model that of biomechanics, trauma, behavior. I had a deep background in embryology, biology, physiology, and so I would notice these patterns. They started at the feet, right? And then I said, "Oh no, this is in the spine." And so I then it went from there, and then I'm like, "Well, no, this is the brain." And then I said, "No, this is the entire nervous system." So it was this process of coming back through and then looking at human research and what we knew about the nervous system, and that's how it happened.
Oh,
So,
cool. That's so fascinating.
yeah.
I always feel like the feet are forensic for the rest of the body. And so when I feel like farriers get a really bad rap because everybody's like blaming their farrier. And I'm like, no, it's much higher up, you guys.
Yeah, it and that's what I recognized. The feet were just a symptom of what's higher. I mean, there's certain things, of course, we have abscesses but even that, there's this, pump in the foot, and the foot is such a organized and intelligent, functioning part of the nervous system as far as awareness. And so I feel that it's all, connected. And especially with laminitis, I learned that treating the laminitis, that supporting the rotation or the sinking or the abscessing was secondary to the nervous system. So,
So all roads start at the nervous system.
yeah,
And are we talking central or peripheral or
we're talking about,
autonomic or
yeah.
sympathetic, or where are we going with this? That's a big basic word, right?
The nervous system as a whole. And so what we see a lot now is where we see the polyvagal theory, Stephen Porges, safety. So you have the vagal ventral branch people work with, or regulation as far as going into sympathetic, parasympathetic. But this field is deeply autonomic, and then it treats the nervous system as a whole function. And it actually led to where I'm going with my research is another branch of the nervous system called the fifth branch, and
What
that's
is
where.
that? What? Tell me.
Well, what I can tell you now is that it is an interface between the environment and the organism. So it's a function of the nervous system. The four branches we already know and work with, but it is the interface of those four branches.
Okay, let's review. What is the four branches? I want to make sure we're all like no assumption.
Yeah, so you know what I'm going to do with that is take it right to the autonomic, because that's really where this fifth branch is function what it's functioning with. And what's interesting about that is people assume the autonomic branch is autonomic, right? You don't have to think to breathe. This is the reptilian brain, the brain stem. So how do you work with that? And so that's what's really interesting about this field is there aren't any other fields that deeply work with that part of the
Well,
nervous.
the nervous system goes to every single organ. It is the reason why we breathe and we move and we blink and we taste and we hear. And so why wouldn't you? So are you like deregulating the nervous system or rewiring it? What are you doing?
We call it reorganization. So,
Okay, I love that.
so it reorganizes. So this is considered a bottom-up approach rather than top-down. And what that means is we're not working from the cortical part of the brain, or we're working from the deepest autonomic part of the brain, so bottom up. And when we work bottom up, you can't get away from developmental aspects. And so that's an axis that I work with the horses. Is It's deeply developmental. And through those developmental phases, there's a reorganization of the nervous system that produces really unique holistic results.
And so when you say from the bottom up, you're talking about from the foot up or
Bottom
the,
up is neurological language as far as working, not from the prefrontal cortex of like somatics. Are you familiar with somatics? So somatics
just
work.
for the audience, go as basic as possible.
Okay. So their body work works with the muscles from the outside in. So working with the nervous system from the outside in is touching the muscles, fascia work. So it's a different doorway, basically. And it produces a very specific result within the nervous system, which is a drop into parasympathetic, which is relaxation. And it's very beneficial because it has a, a biological uh, effect as far as lowering cortisol and raising other good hormones. So bottom up is a different doorway. So we don't work with the body on the outside, and we don't work with organizing their thought process or learning um, by moving them a certain way. Does that make sense? Let's say, like physical therapy, you're retraining the body how to move. So you're teaching the horse signals, which goes through the prefrontal cortex to learn, and then it transfers to their body, and then you have that resulting in a nervous system shift.
Oh, okay. So I was actually thinking it was more of a hands-on therapy. Is it both?
No, it's not. We do a what we call a neuro cueing, and so it's a pattern along an axis on the spine. But most of the work is completely hands off. That's just a small portion of it.
I didn't get that before. Thank you for clarifying that. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm curious about that because it almost sounds like you get the horse to detox his nervous system in a way.
Oh, that's a really interesting way to put it, because I don't like the word release, because that's not what I've been seeing in the way nervous systems reorganize. They reorganize. Um, and so detox would be that, in that same realm, kind of just shifting out of um, well, if you think of a pattern in the nervous system as toxic.
Right. Exactly. That fight or flight aspect, but you're putting them in a relaxed state. So
Well,
I,
they go through all states in our work, and that's what we want. We want the nervous system fully functioning through its full capacity. So it isn't just deep relaxation. It's throughout a session, the whole nervous system recalibrates and functions as it should. So you see hypervigilant states come up depending where they are developmentally, and all the muscles, posture will reflect that, and then they cycle through this axis.
okay.
And what happen, I hope I'm speaking in terms that are understandable. I'm in the research world and sciencey, and I forget sometimes, not that it's that I when I speak, it's hard for people to understand terms like.
So I
So
have a question.
Go
So
ahead, Janice.
you're basically working on neuroplasticity. You're basically starting with the nervous system the way you're presented with it, and you're going through the phases of the nervous system and teaching them how to be elastic and teaching them how to be the way they should be in processing things in a way that is healthy so that they can adapt to any situation that they're in. Does that make sense?
Yes, adaptation and the neuroplasticity is very much part of this. It's a natural, it's downstream of the nervous system doing this. And that's a great question because it brings me back to the original top down, bottom up. Neuroplasticity can occur top down too, through the prefrontal cortex learning. And so this is bottom up where the nervous system actually creates the neuroplasticity. So that's correct. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mhm.
So,
Modern
so,
neuroscience.
so you are doing this with dogs, and I also saw that you went to a zoo and they had you work on some zoo animals, right?
Yeah, I was invited to do a research project, and it's a rhinoceros. I was introduced to giraffes, and it looks like we'll be doing a rhino pilot study on environmental reciprocity, which is um, what the nervous system ends up functioning in. So that's another.
So,
This is very layered, and I'll do my best to break it down.
okay, so how can you go through your range of nervous system assessments and recovery and restructuring or realigning the nervous system with a rhino?
That's why I went and visited to see if this would even be possible. And a really interesting story is the lady who works there, the one that connected me to the the place, was there, and she's seen me work with horses. So I was there near this giant rhino, just blown away by it. The experience alone was just I was just thrilled. And so I presented some of the cues and things that we work with the horses, and the rhino responded. So yeah. So our actual research project, we're working on the biomarkers that we're going to be using for this. Uh, should be easily obtained because they already have the ability to put the rhino in their kind of positive reinforcement train to go in stocks and things. So it looks like it'll work out well. So we'll see.
That's
Yeah.
super amazing. And they're ginormous, right? I've
They're-
never I mean, I've seen them at the zoo, but I've never stood next to a rhino.
I was, I got to touch and observe through the lens of through equine neurotherapy, and they're fascinating as far to me as far as their sensory perception and their senses and all of that. So I'm really excited. And interspecies research is like the gold standard, and so that's exciting before we move into the human research in 27. Yeah.
So, Mary, I know you are, do you want to be called Mary Elizabeth or
Yes.
Mary?
That's Mary.
Okay, Mary Elizabeth. So, on dogs, because they're kind of predator versus
Yes.
prey, does that change for you?
Yeah. The way that the sessions go do change a little bit. And so one of the key things that we work with in this therapeutic process and in this field is field awareness and proximity and things like that. So we're working with specific areas of the neurological system and nervous system in that way. And yes, prey predator has a little different um, we have a little different approach, but the axis that we work with is the same.
Now, because their brains are different than horses, because their olfactory bulb is so large, do
Yeah.
you adjust and do you incorporate scents and smells and
Oh
things
yeah.
like that?
The entire all of with horses as well. We work deeply with every sense. Yeah.
Like scent smell like essential oil, or are you talking?
Yes. Yeah, I developed it in 2017. I called it Pavlov's RX. And so I noticed that if anybody's familiar with Pavlov's dogs and that research, Pavlov understood conditioning by ringing a bell, and dogs would salivate. So I took essential oils, and during certain parts of the session, we do a conditioning that helps incorporate the entire session. Yeah.
So you have an aromatic aspect, an aromatherapy aspect. Do you also do like touch, sound, other, like, do you incorporate all the senses?
All the senses. One of the really interesting things that I started noting uh, fairly early on was that horses who were dysregulated in their nervous system also had sensory processing deficits. So, for example, you have a horse that's really looky, and so they were their visual cortex was overstimulated, and then they would drop out of the olfactory, their sense of smell, or so imbalances that way when horses, all of us mammals, have kind of I call it a gestalt sense where they're all meant to work together. At least a regulated nervous system is supposed to have it all online and working at the same time.
Throw an interesting spin on this
Yeah.
because when I went to homeopathic school, one thing really blew my mind and left an imprint on my psyche in regards to there's this belief if you have mental illness, you don't manifest physical illness because
Mm-hmm.
the body's so stuck in that dimension. And I unfortunately was married to a guy who was schizophrenic and he never got sick.
Interesting.
And so it it kind of like intrigued me. I didn't love being married to a schizophrenic, but I learned something there. And I subtly experimented with him on this realm. And as he got better, he actually got a flu one day and he was irate about it. He was like, I never get sick. I cannot believe I'm sick. And behind, I'm like, yes, he's sick. So I was super happy that it went from the mental plane to the physical plane and he could actually get sick. But during COVID, they built all these shelters to rehab the sick, homeless people with COVID, and nobody came because they stayed in the mental
So,
illness range.
so essentially, you uh, are thinking that with malfunction of the brain and nervous system, that the immune system is,
It wasn't recognizable
yeah, yeah,
because the body was working so hard
right.
on a different
Yeah, I
level.
love the recognizable word there that
Yeah,
you,
they might have still got COVID and they might have still were sick, but they
yeah.
didn't recognize it. Same with the Alzheimer's patients. So there was a friend of mine, her husband's dad was in an Alzheimer's facility and the whole floor got COVID, but they didn't know it until they were almost at the point of death because they didn't show any symptoms.
Asymptomatic. Well, that's interesting as far as the olfactory um, aspect. If, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, and I don't even know if that's olfactory. I just think the brain
virus. Yeah.
car- compartmentalizes
Hmm.
where the need is.
Hmm.
It's just been a fascinating study. And actually I'll talk to I go out and feed the homeless in Sacramento like monthly, and there's a lot of insane people out there, and very few are sick ever. but I'll kind of probe around and ask them some questions just because I'm kind of intrigued by that.
Yeah, there's a thread there somewhere, isn't there, into this intelligence of the body and what it does. And
Yeah, and the prioritizing for survival.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So I thought that might be fun for you to
yeah,
like
yeah.
weigh your thoughts into
No,
that.
I'm always open and listening to these nuances of the way the nervous system functions with the environment. And that's exactly what all my research and things are leading into. And that's a very I'm going to be busy till the end of my days with
Right.
this path I'm on. It's exciting and it's overwhelming. So, but it's a lot of fun.
Well, and
So
it's always emerging at this point. It's kind of pathetic how little we know about brain and neural function.
yeah, I just got back from I was had a meeting with a neuroscientist, and we went to a research institute presentation or in San Francisco, and it was basically computational neuroscience, but there was one specific part that was explaining an interface that I found interesting, and it's really sad how it's valuable information to understand the function of the brain, but everything where my research is leading is consciousness research. So
Well, and I was just gonna say that
yeah,
it,
but
you know,
everything goes
you could
back to the brain. You know, they take everything back and circle it around within the organism.
to
And
the physical aspect, but
yeah,
I think there's a dimensional aspect, and we're looking at it linear.
yeah. No, this is not linear. And so
So,
it's really exciting because it's system science and it's field labs and all the things that I'm actively pursuing
So
to
do you go into like a supernatural realm in your processes?
well, some people would call it a supernatural realm. That language I highly value because a lot of my work, when people ask, well, how did you? And I can track it back to all these sciences that we all, I have a rich background in that, but most of my background is in mysticism, Taoism, yoga, the indigenous peoples, shamanistic. So all of these realms that they worked in with healing and dealing with nature and people. So the language that they used was because they didn't have the science to explain it. But I see it as all one thing, though.
yes,
Spirituality is
absolutely.
science is spirituality. I'm not trying to separate it. I'm trying to join it together. So
Incorporate it.
yeah, what's really unique about this work is I'm opening practitioner training, and the practitioner is trained as well to their nervous system state, and it's beyond just being relaxed around a horse or not pushing them, or it's an actual um, it's an actual kind of interface you develop with the horse, and it can feel very spiritual. Yeah, yeah.
Thing.
That's
So
a big challenge that you're trying to ask the scientific community to
Yes.
open to something that's vibrational and well beyond their capabilities of defining right now, because that's their purpose is to define and look at it in a left brain way, and it's not left brain, and it's very much right brain. It's very much non-definable. It's very much you have to be open to the possibilities. So
Yes,
that is a huge challenge, but
it is. And I'm
I'm
finding my
so
people,
excited.
they're out there. They're out there, and it's reductionist science you're speaking of,
Yes.
that left hemisphere dominance. And so having coherence between the two and understanding the nervous system as a living ecological interface is bridging this, and I agree. I'm very excited. And
Very excited. Woo.
Right on. Thank you, Janice, for
thank
your
you,
input
Janice.
on that. Thank you for, I mean, it helps us all understand this whole process because it's a little esoteric,
Yeah,
but interesting. I've always, not always, but recently, maybe in the last 5, 6 years, I've always thought about disease being on the physical plane. Like you can get a physical parasite, but I also feel like you can get a mental parasite or a spiritual parasite. And so those are different things. And then I was talking to Brenda Generali, and she goes, oh, in iridology, if you go to this like spiritual aspect of iridology, she goes, there's people that see ghosts in other people's irises. And I'm
yeah,
like, that's creepy. I'm like, that's pretty out
yeah,
there, but it's intrigued me and it's crossed my mind. I've seen some really interesting irises where I'm like, well, huh. And fun that some of the irises we Janet, I think it's your client that we saw a puppy's iris that was pretty messed up. And so it was like the knee was marking and the hip was marking. I'm like, clearly this puppy does not have these issues. And I was like, Janet, does the owner have these issues? And she's like, yes.
yeah, yeah. There's and that's exactly the realm of this work, is showing that this it's not transference necessarily, but there is this connection of all things to all things, particularly the nervous system. And you know, seeing spirits, and what I've studied through shamanism, and all of that work is, and now we know in neuroscience, in fact, one of the neuroscientists I was chit-chatting with the other last week, is we can see when the brain lights up, you know, as and it's a receiver of the environment. And so um, for me,
But also the dimensional aspect of the environment,
yeah,
not
so that,
just like,
oh, I see. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So we're talking
Able to
multi-dimensional.
see the multidimensional uh, areas, our nervous system and our brain has to be functioning at a certain level.
Oh, I
And,
love that
and
because
some people's are, they're clairaudient or clairvoyant, so they just don't have that full. And I think this is evolution. This isn't an evolutionary thing, that this our nervous systems are shifting, and allowing downstream our brains to light up online and be fully functional. And I'll go crazy here and mention DNA.
okay, I'm gonna screw down my hat. Let's do it, girl. I'm gonna tighten the stampede string. Let's get
Yeah,
to it.
we
Yeah.
go really deep and broad, which I'm um, enjoying doing for my some of the books I'm writing and things like that. But for the research, I'm really honing in on some basic stuff to really empirically root this in biology first, because I found an axis, and so that, but it's heading, and horses. I'm just like, who would have thought that horses would lead me into like deep consciousness research? And
Oh, I think it makes sense actually because we ride them. So we have a relationship like joining with them
yeah.
on a physical level. So it definitely like,
Nervous systems have a unique relationship with the natural world. At least that's what I've experienced, and what I work with. And I'm really curious to see a rhino's relationship. And I've worked with cattle as well, and yeah, and they're all slightly different, but on the same branch, this fifth branch, and we have it too. Yeah.
so are you postulating that their brain differences, their like the folds in their brains Like horses have so many folds compared to a cat.
Yeah. My big focus is on the corpus callosum function rather
So the
than,
gray matter.
yeah, yeah.
So
And
not the folds. Interesting.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you can, in human iridology, the corpus callosum does mark in the 12 o'clock region. So we haven't, because the animal iridology is so new, we've had this discussion in the clinical course, but we haven't verified it.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very fascinating.
yeah.
Janice, do you want to say something? I see you're unmuted. Jump
Oh my
in.
God, this my brain is like exploding right now. I mean, it's just so amazing that it all fits in to everything. I mean, if you look at astrology right now, this is the beginning of the age of of Aquarius. This is the beginning of humans opening up again to connectivity, which we've lost over the centuries. And it,
Feminine, which is the right hemisphere, and on and on.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, it all fits together, and it's all happening the way it's supposed to happen.
yes.
It's just it's mind blowing. It's just mind blowing. You're wow. Your research is going to be just amazing, just amazing.
I can't, it's really exciting. Yeah, because it's exactly what you said. We've been doing kind of a fun thing. I'm working with a couple other people, scientists, and we're finding threads into like every part of spirituality with this fifth branch. Not only science, but spirituality, astrology, Walter Russell cosmology. I mean, there's these parallels that it's
Yeah.
and it's beginning to be like, you
Yeah,
know,
like it's so big. It's so big that
yeah,
you can't look at it all together. You have to just know that you're in it, that you're within it, and then pick a subject that you
yes,
can narrow the focus down so you can actually study it and understand it and look at it in a cohesive manner. But yeah, you have to be able to do that in order to look at it.
yeah, and that's me. I'm a big I have pattern recognition. Obviously, this is how, and I'm a systems thinker. So I've
Yes.
had to really take a couple years, and it's like this wave I went through, and now I'm back to, okay, you got to, I'm dedicated to these first studies, because this is where science needs to start.
Yes.
It is broad. And
Yes, you need to start with them at a biological level and
yes,
bring them with you as you travel upward,
yeah.
upward and
Yes,
outward.
and consciousness research it's really funny because, in my free time, you know, in all these years between training horses and riding and, being in even rehab, the consciousness was my little uh, consciousness research and studying meditation myself and neuroscience and really going on that end of the spectrum has always been where my heart is. But I had no clue that the work I was doing, and it's just been a revelation of this emergence. So yeah,
Well, and
and
it's interesting because I also think we all share, like, horses are herd animals, dog are pack animals, and when we're living with them, we're sharing microbiome, we're sharing like nerve impulses. They're tasting our fear and our stresses, like they're processing that stuff. Is
even
that
I mean, the the plant kingdom, mycelial. Now I've spent years diving deep into that, and what they're understanding now about sending out signals and this network, and it's coming together.
well, and the planet itself resonates
Yes, yeah,
with that. And so I used to go to accounts and look at the flora that was growing. I'd be like, hey, does your horse eat this or this or this? And they're like, we've never seen that horse eat that. And in fact, we've never seen that plant ever until this year. And then the horse will go right up in front of us and eat it. And they're like, no, there you go. And
yeah,
so I believe that Earth has some intelligence to provide what the disorder is on top of the earth.
Yeah, because with my fifth branch theory, there is a reciprocal relationship with Earth and nature. And so this reciprocity is a language. Um, and um, and that language is now being measured scientifically.
How do you measure that?
Well, they're measuring it through the ground and molecules and air and yeah, and the mycelial network and the dog I worked with recently, really suffering for a year with pancreatitis and irritable bowel syndrome. She's an aging dog. And so this vet team completely over the last year has kept her stable enough with medications, but they're baffled because they couldn't figure out, like, well, she doesn't have tumor. They went through the battery of tests to try to figure out why was she getting pancreatitis and irritable bowel syndrome, and nothing made sense. And so the owner reached out to me, and I'm like, okay, let's just see what it's. And so we began working with her. And when you just brought up the rhythms of Earth, and this work is deeply working with ultradian and circadian rhythm within the nervous system, and so by the third session, I said, she's suffering a form of sundowner syndrome. And so I began working, and I've worked with that before. So we began implementing some, besides the sessions for her nervous system reorganization, implementing some things during the day. And she, in 2 weeks, went from, barely stabilized, diarrhea, pain, not eating, having to take appetite stimulants, to just a whole new dog.
Wow.
And so that was pretty exciting to know that this very specific nervous system architecture that I'm working with could help gap, and bring her to a place and to recognize it. I mean, I don't think our medical system recognizes those things as far as a diagnostic. So
It's interesting now, no change of anything else, like no food change, no nothing like that. And the dog was heavily medicated, it sounds like, which is
the next thing. She's on antibiotics, appetite stimulants, steroids, all these things. But she's been on that for over 6 months and still cycles in and out. They can't figure out why. And she's made a complete turnaround.
excellent. Rodney went into a deep dive on the 4 oldest living dogs, and what he found out was the only consistent thing that all 4 dogs were is they lived outside.
Oh, microbiome then.
No, biorhythm. So circadian rhythm.
Yes.
Yeah. So the sun, they were up with the sun, they were down with the moon, and they were not living indoors, sleeping on some bed and being stimulated by TV and all that other
I
stuff.
love that information because I haven't worked a lot with dogs, but with horses, early on in the rehab process, I instinctively would pull a horse out of the stall barn and face it in the morning sun. So sun came through the retina, and influence their brain. And these were very, very sick, lame, on the edge horses. And that was just instinctually part of my process. So, yeah.
Interesting. Now, let's get back to the horses and the neuro aspect, because there's a lot of horses with neurologic disorders like pathogens like EPM and Lyme and
Yeah, I've worked with
Western.
EPM a lot, and that deserves a study on its own, to measure, because we've had great success with that as well.
Does it actually cure? Like, can you clear the disease out, or are you just reincorporating the neuro system to like regain elasticity and function and
Yes.
like rewire it.
Rewiring it because there were no formal, markers that in the horses I worked with that could empirically state that, oh, it was cured. But it deserves a study for sure. Yeah.
It sounds like you're changing the terrain.
Yes, the medium, I call it.
Yeah, yeah,
So
Medium.
just like in the petri dish, the medium.
yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So so these things can't function within the
Right.
intelligent system of the body.
And so now we have this equine herpes scare, and people are having to like stop their whole lives and do biosecurity. Is there things that you do that actually boost the immune system because you're getting the animal healthier on all dimensions?
Absolutely. This work, I've gone into horses that were dealing with, different issues such as that as a support system, and it made all the difference. And of course, they continued medical treatment, so I can't say that, it was this alone, but it shifted everything and fast.
So,
Um,
do you think it's just the human horse interaction? Is that you're listening and you're caring, or do you think you're actually rewiring?
oh, definitely rewiring. And bringing full function back to their nervous system as it's supposed to function. Um, Due to our now horses suffer from the left hemisphere phenomenon as well, because guess what? They're working with people who are left hemisphere dominated. And so just the way we train, we're programming, we're conditioning, we're creating a chemistry in the brain that shifts the nervous system into like this very unique place. And that leaves horses open to numerous functional issues when they're not able to be in relationship with their environment, and that includes people. So yes, we play a role in it, but it ultimately comes. I call it the bond. So it's a biochemical preface to the work. So we establish a unique kind of bond before a session, and
And
so
when you're doing your rewiring, are you using like the equine body balance pads or anything like that? Or are you just incorporating all the senses and the light and the smells?
yeah. So in basically the environment will do the work for the horse, but in like hard rehab cases where there's a lot of biomechanical issues, I've incorporated special kind of shoes for proprioception, pads, terrain. I really like to use mud, sand, water, anything that speaks to the nervous system naturally is much more received than artificial anything, just like the body knows, the nervous system knows. And
Well,
so,
and I also feel like if you, as the owner, have no hope,
yeah,
it translates to the animal.
yeah. I That's a good little segue to go on. Is early on, I used to have a student with me or a young handler that would work with the horse who understood the process, and we could keep the horse engaged in the process, and I'd make the owner kind of stand off at a distance because it was too much to teach them within an hour session. Later on, I realized how important it is if you can get that, especially the first session or two, to get them involved in this because that is part of the process. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, I think hope is important for everything.
yeah. Yeah.
And and so if somebody's audibly speaking negative, like, oh, it just shocks me when people are like, that stupid horse or something like that. I'm just like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, don't say that. Like there's probably a legit reason. Like, I want to call you stupid now. So yeah, go talk
And
about this. Talk about your experience.
my experience with people uh, on many levels, but in the real rehab where their horses, um, and usually they've tried everything else first, and they're very frustrated. They've spent a lot of money. They have a linear idea about I need to see improvement right here in order for me to feel safe enough to say this horse is going to get better. Yeah, so I have to play therapist with them a little bit and help them shift their perspective on the horse so it helps the horse shift. So as the horse is reorganizing, helping them become, it's an awareness of these little shifts that eventually make the whole um, progress into what they're looking for.
Yeah, so I almost wonder if there's a toxicity that you are actually rewiring the owner to get rid of that toxic behavior so the horse has freedom
Yeah,
to
definitely.
breathe and enjoy itself.
Yeah, we've had some, which is leading to our human research and also hopefully programs for equine assisted therapists and things to broaden their field. The responses of owners have been just incredible, like witnessing sessions, witnessing their horse go through this. Anything, everything from breaking down in tears to nausea and vomiting to falling asleep, all these nervous system expressions um, were started occurring. My husband used to laugh and say, "Who'd you make cry today?" Because I'd say, this is early on. I'm like, well, I don't know why these owners start crying. It's like they get really emotional and they want to tell me what they're going through. And it was actually very touching. And so I was tapping into this. And so,
You're
yeah,
opening up channels for everybody.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's all it is. We shut down channels, and that's what makes us so that's what gets us into trouble all the time. Is rather than dealing with the issues, we shut down those channels because they're too painful or they take away hope or they're afraid their horse is going to die, so they hesitate to invest anymore. But they love them so much that I mean there's so many complex emotions involved there, and you're just opening those channels up wide so they can connect to each other.
yeah. And that channel, I think, is the fifth branch.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's
Makes sense.
yeah, I'm glad it does. That's really exciting. So, the environment, we're part of that environment, that landscape that the horse is designed to connect to, adapt with, and reciprocally have a language with. And I think there are many gifted horse people who are tapping into it that don't realize they are, and don't have a system for it to directly influence. But I've witnessed that, and body workers too. They're tapping into part of this, gifted ones, if they stay less biomechanically. And I'm hoping that the world will get away from dissecting bodies and looking at them closely, dead, and start to look at them with life in them and their life as far as how are they interacting with the life around them. I feel like that's the next frontier. And I'll be useful to look at muscles and damage. One of the things I want to emphasize is that we cannot empirically say that this damage to a vertebrae occurred because of an age, a saddle, or riding too young, when every thousands of moments led to that you don't know how it occurred. Do you see what I mean? So if you're doing surgery and you're a doctor and you need to understand the anatomy in that manner and you're fixing things that way, I feel it's very useful.
Oh, and for me, it's really useful for the iridology. So we can
Oh, yeah, yeah.
confirm locations and verify that when we see a marker
Oh, that's
here,
great. Yeah, so
it's
you're tying it into another, yeah,
study.
yeah,
Yeah, so it's verifying, but then you have that whole other dimension aspect. So yeah, the mind, body, soul, spirit, and lifestyle, like you, the way they relate to life
and
itself.
earth and
That's yeah, lifestyle, like
yeah,
a happy environment versus a negative
yeah.
environment. It was when I got a divorce, it was really surprising to me because it was a really stressful marriage and the cat left before I did. And so I knew it was over because it was his cat. And I was like, oh, the cat jumped ship. And
Yeah, yeah,
so I was like, if the cat's jumping
Wow.
ship,
That's a
I'm gonna,
sign if there is one.
yeah, the cat jumped ship, ran across the street to the old neighbor and started living with the old neighbor. Um,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah,
And so I was like, oh, the handwriting's on the wall. And
yeah.
so, but I really thought our dog that grew up with us as a married couple would be happy to be out of that toxic situation. And he wasn't. He went through um remorse.
Mm,
And I was surprised
yeah,
by that. Yeah.
yeah. Taking the role, taking on the remorse of the situation.
I actually thought because I was happier, I was healthier, I was more in my body and more in my spirit. Like you even said that the horses can be kind of shut down in certain areas. And when you are abused or things are so stressful, you get a little brain dead, right? You're just like glazed over and you can't like apply yourself in an efficient way. And so
Your brain actually changes, and that changes your, your even the way you focus every day in the world. So it really brings you into like focal pinpointing and instead of, that spatial awareness and yeah, so those two go hand in hand. Isn't that interesting? Narrow-minded, those terms. So trauma and being in situations like that change the function of the brain. And it's actually before that, the nervous system has already uh, caused that change. So
right. And I do, so there's technically six detox pathways, but I always say there's seven because I feel like the nervous system has its own ability to detox.
yeah, yeah, that's interesting to me. I need to like sit with that and unpack it a little bit. That's a good variation of I have to understand it in relation, but I'm sure it's not what you see out there right now, what's popular, all the nervous system language and understanding the architecture really isn't well understood. So I'm really excited to bring this work out. And I think it'll change many modalities. People who are helping horses, training, owners. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
no, it's exciting. And I think it's almost like biohacking in
yeah.
some respect, but it's a dimensional biohacking, which I think is going to be the new world
Mhm.
aspect, like Janice kind of rolled through there and related. And I do think horses are really spiritual animals.
Yeah, they're tapped into that ecological reciprocity um, in a beautiful way, and they're pure. That's the only people say they're like magic and spiritual, and I just see them as pure. And so when I look at them as pure, I can really see the patterns that of impurity when they come to me.
Well, and I also believe that the DNA has memory. Like I believe that the Arabian horses from Solomon's day
Yes.
actually gave their story generation after generation and that their DNA has that memory. Like, I believe that when people say past lives, I actually think it's a DNA memory
It's
ingrained.
yeah, the DNA is like an energetic recorder. And it also has could like epigenetics. I don't know if you've studied that. That's a really interesting, wonderful field. So the environment can express, and that's why I use the term expression in my horses, because I'm pretty sure, and this is down the road research, that we're getting the horses to express certain genetic traits within them. We're talking, and it's really interesting if you know a bloodline really well, and this horse comes to you, and suddenly it blossoms into everything the bloodline is known for, posturally, in every way. So it's definitely, this is working on that with that genetic. Nothing is left out in this work.
Well, and Mary Elizabeth, when I used to be a horse trainer and I broke quite a few colts a
Mhm.
year, I would take my good show horse and put him next to those colts. And those colts would get with the program so much happier, so much faster, so much more comprehension, and just way more willing.
Yeah,
So I'd
that's
be like, hey, you teach him how to do this, and I'll see you in the morning.
yeah, it was the best. You know, I was starting colts too. I started hundreds, and the same thing is if you could have them around your seasoned horses and have them in the environment where things were going on that you were doing with your other horses. That's I love that you put it that way. You know, just have them. It, I didn't know it at the time, but that's what was happening. I thought it was just easier for me at the time.
Yeah, and sometimes these colts never watched this horse move or ride or anything like that. It was just side by side, stalls next to each other,
Yeah.
and transferring some sort of intelligence. And and I know people, when I was a trainer and teaching riding lessons, I could tell when people were worried about getting bucked off and things like that. You see their tension and all of that. So I'm like, are you like imagining getting bucked off right now? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, your horse is partnering with that.
Yeah.
Like, you have to change that.
Yeah. Do things to work with what you just said. One is I have also learned in my rehab years how to strategically place certain horses with developmental gaps next to other horses. So, case in point, you
Yeah.
know, let the horse do the job. Um, and it's fascinating to watch. And then, yeah, a very good veterinary friend of mine who is going to be on the board for the research institute. She told me years ago that horses talk in mental pictures, you
Yep.
know. That's how they communicate with each other. So I always thought that was really cool. Yeah.
Right. And I do believe that whatever the rider, because they're on the horse and they're like projecting this neuro pattern of, oh, I'm gonna get hurt, I'm gonna get hurt, something's gonna go wrong. And the horse is like, okay, you want me to do this? I'm gonna do this because you're telling me. You're physically saying one thing and you're projecting something
Yeah.
totally different.
My
That makes sense.
hypothesis on that, based on the how deeply I work with the nervous system, is that there's possibly some type of frequency that the nervous system has its own kind of language. And it would make sense now that, over the past few years, I've been following a lot of plant research. And so they can measure that as well. So I'm thinking, and they even are measuring like the molecules that are expressing like serotonin and things. So you could really tie that into like a frequency language of the nervous system. And then certain people, their nervous system doesn't respond to it or does. And so you have,
Interesting. And the frequency aspect that's gotten to be such a huge conversation in the last 5 years is like 440, how 440 is wired for chaos, which is a radio waves, whereas 444 is a calming wave. Do you play with frequencies?
well, I haven't ever played with it, but I'm certainly, my mind is always, that's there's definitely these, I have ideas, and I'm kind of exploring and chit-chatting with some people that are studying that and research right now, just to kind of gather up some of that to put the whole picture together. I'm hoping to write a book that's in plain language that would help like tie all this together. I've been working on it for a while for horse people. Yeah. So
Awesome.
yeah, I think it'll be really
You
neat.
said, Poppy, that, so much information is passed down through the DNA from the generations, but what to do with that information, they don't know until they're introduced to it in real life, because
Yes,
that's where the vibration comes in,
right.
where they're picking up the vibration from the other horses on, excuse me, on how they need to behave and what to do with that information. And that, I'm sure that just kicks right in when they're around a healthy horse.
Hmm.
That it's like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. That's how I'm supposed to be.
And cellular
Amazing.
memory. Like
Yes,
I feel like
absolutely.
that cellular memory kicks in and goes, wow, this feels familiar. I don't know why, but this
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so you can even, my work has gone all the way back to in utero. I noticed patterns within broodmares that a lot of times, a lot of these facilities have broodmares that have existing issues, and they're passed down to be a broodmare because they can't be, they have pain, a bone cyst, an injury. And interestingly enough, and I'll say this generously with myself because I didn't do any studies, but I noticed a pattern, and it tipped me off to that this starts all this nervous system language and chemistry that it expresses and genetic expression is happens in utero.
It'd be really fun, just because I've been a breeding manager in the past, is to experiment with music through the broodmare barn or something, you know, like doing like affirmations or anything like
Like
that.
kind of like the water consciousness studies, Mr.
Exactly.
Emoto's studies, all those with water, and yeah, I'm really into that. I'm yeah.
Well, and why wouldn't you? Water has a resonating effect, and here these babies are in amniotic
Mhm.
solution. So
Right.
yeah, huh,
And
very cool. I'm
and the
all
other,
excited now. I'm like,
yeah, I know we have the axis that I work with in a session is deeply tied to that period of time when they're in utero. So
yeah, Leslie's saying I feel this is a big issue with recip marrows passing on issues to foals. And we were doing a lot of embryo transfers and it was difficult. Like a lot of the foals came out looking like the recip mare. And I'd be like, doctor, how come this like world champion halter horse to world champion halter horse, but put in a shire has come out like a shire? And he's like, did you breed that mare? And I'm like, no, this is your embryo. And so I'm like,
yeah.
that shire blood is rolling through that.
Yeah, so yeah, it absolutely. There's a lot of transference of things happening in utero, probably more than, I mean, beyond what we can imagine because of that specific, as far as let's just call it an evolutionary step with the embryo. That is a highly energetic time where these processes are really fine-tuned and searching for their environment to help the processes move along.
And
So you
Mary Elizabeth, I think when they actually flush the embryo is traumatic for
yes.
the embryo. Like I feel like those embryo transfer babies are a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. I mean, these
It
are
gives
all,
it gives a new meaning to blood's thicker than water.
I mean, you will start tying everything together with sayings and go all the way back. Like, yeah, it's so interesting. The one of the really interesting things that I worked with when I was working with broodmares at a facility was retained follicles, and it was amazing. And I worked with stallions too that um, weren't ejaculate, all these different things. But I felt that the mares with retained follicles, that the entire process was stopping because of the environment, like with their how their nervous system was responding to this process they were in.
Do you remember that woman that embezzled a ton of money and bought all those nice horses? And then they had that she ended up going to jail. I think Netflix did a documentary on it called All the Queen's Horses. And they're quarter horses. They were the top of the world quarter horses. They had a dispersal sale. I guess she embezzled like $80 million or something. And so everybody thought she was a trust fund person, and she was actually a convict. And
A
so
con artist.
when they sold all those horses off, I heard a lot of them died.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
People got scared to purchase her bloodlines because they were like, I don't know, there's some bad juju
yeah.
connected to that.
It's a real thing. I'm out to prove it is.
Funny.
Yeah, all these threads. It's very interesting to sit here with minds that are system thinkers and pattern recognizers and yeah, and horses. I mean, there is so much potential research out there coming from this vantage point. I call it a vantage point because it's a whole new perspective. It's outside the realm of what our current modalities are doing and where they're at, and it's a pretty exciting actually, and it's an opportunity for so many professionals in all different realms to kind of come together and see like this interface I'm bringing forth and say, oh, well, this will tie into my work. And it's really, I'm sure of it. So,
That's so fun. Lee Black, who is a member, she's making a comment on Facebook. If you're into water, check out the work of Veda.
It's
Awesome.
awesome.
yeah, she's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, she started her studies, I don't know, about like 2018. And she's got books out and projects. And I was really, my husband, I had all these petri dishes in the freezer. I'm like, okay, look at the water and think of something. My darling husband, he's like, okay. And the first one we did was amazing because he did, and it turned out to be a horse, one of our horses, Frank.
Really?
Yeah, it came out in the
Did
water.
you say Frank or did it just change into Frank?
His instructions were to mentally visualize something and look at the water. And that was Veda's instructions. So I went through her thing and so I showed it to him and he was like,
That
okay.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
kind of
So
chilling. You know, I always notice that if I pray in the shower, my prayers are more profound. Like the answer to the prayer, the outcome. Water is so special.
and so this is that ecological reciprocity I speak of with kind of sciencey words, but it is water is part of our ecological awareness.
So here's a new spin is everyone doing weather manipulation and shooting stuff into the sky to
Right.
to create this fake rain. Is
Yeah.
that going to pollute all of us on multiple dimension? Like I
Yeah.
know my trees are dying more than what they should do.
It's a war on the nervous system. And I won't say a war, but it is for the nervous system, it's a war. I'm not talking about people specifically out there executing war. I mean that just having our atmosphere dimmed for weather control affects those circadian ultradian rhythms, the pineal gland, our brains. I mean, everything right now through our nervous systems are really struggling, and the horses are too. And
Right.
so what I've seen in my work is there's a way to what I think in people and horses is this is dormant within them, this branch. I don't think it's damaged. I think it goes dormant. I see damage in development that leads to activation of this fifth branch.
So if we're overstimulated on the physical plane, like scrolling and entertainment and just business in general or relationships, we have such a hard time accessing other planes.
Yes.
And in homeopathy, they say that a healthy person is a creative person. That's how they determine health, is if you're not creative, there's something out of alignment.
Yes, because it what they're alluding to is this hemispheric balance, and you only get that through this nervous system, full nervous system function. It's downstream. It isn't the brain through cognitive or cortical information. It comes, at least this is what I'm discovering. It's through
Like
this.
a primal adaptability.
Right,
It's
right.
from the very, very core. Yeah,
Yeah.
because even in humans, when you're talking about going back to the embryos, I mean, that's um, a big focus for homeopaths now is what happened to this fetus in utero. What was the mother doing? What was, and then going back generations. What are the impacts of generations on this embryo? What are all of these things that are impacting this
Not,
embryo and caused it to go into an imbalance like that?
Well, and
yeah.
I also believe, to take it to that aspect, is the motive of conception.
Hmm.
Like if
Yeah.
you're breeding for a world champion, or if you're breeding for just a pretty horse or a paint horse with certain markings, like I feel that that affects the outcome.
Yes.
My person that I worked for would walk through the barn aisle and go, "Thank you, God, for all the beautiful babies." And the mares weren't pregnant yet. And that year we had a huge, amazing full crop. The
Yeah.
next year she didn't do it. And I was like, you really need to go through the barn and start thanking the Lord for all the beautiful babies, because we're having a very bad fertile year this year. And so, yeah, it was really interesting to watch that.
Singing to the corn, all those things, talking to the plants, intention, all these things are within that realm of the fifth branch, that interface.
But
Yeah.
also going back to the motive, like you've got my brain spinning literally. Um, is the people that are causing the weather manipulation their own motives when they're like packing the airplane or shooting it in the air or whatever, whether it's greed or like world domination or whatever else that might be going on there.
I
And
don't know if you're familiar with Ian McGilchrist's work, the Master and His Emissary. He's a neuroscientist, and so what you're saying there is there are human beings out there who are completely left hemisphere dominated, and not only that, dysfunctioning as far as like dopamine reward systems and things within that brain map type of map. And so we have what you're saying here is a complete detachment from humanity, from nature itself. And so
right,
there,
like a God complex in
yeah,
that aspect. But also I'm wondering if the essence of the motive is getting caught in the chemistry and being spread across the earth.
yeah. Well, that's been measured to some degree in some research things I've been looking into as far as measuring motive and what chemical cascade kind of occurs. So if it occurs at that level, then it's definitely occurring on this plane, the other level, as above, so below, type thing. So
Yeah.
it's all a working symbiotic
Very,
relation.
very fascinating. Do you guys have any questions? Do you want to open the floor for some convo, or do you need to bounce?
Forces to go deep into consciousness and
Do you guys want to ask anything? Are you guys like,
can I tell you a little bit about what all horses, how they respond to this work?
oh yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna remove my spotlight and then I'm gonna just put you front
Oh.
and center. Go for it.
So what we always get from horses and what they get out of these sessions and reestablishing a full nervous system architecture and function is on the first level. What I started measuring was postural change, and so the horses get a posture that is expressive. And when I say expressive, is they're moving and functioning within their genetics, who they are, what they are, and freely. So there is no for micromanaged bodies to perform certain tasks. They express out of that, and then when they're asked to perform those tasks, they broaden so much that they can do that, but not stay in that state, if that makes sense. So we have endocrine improvement, we have biomechanical improvement, we have spinal mobility improvement, we have behavioral improvement, we have learning. They learn so much better. We've identified learning styles in horses, but so what this produces is just a whole horse functioning as through a functional nervous system, not just relaxed. It's much more than that. So yeah, so it happens to have worked very well for rehab and healing certain issues, a lot of
And I
issues.
I love how personal it is.
Hmm.
So, and I think like large rehab centers, like just get the horse out, go through the rigmarole, put it back, and there's no eye to eye, heart to heart, um, no burning desire to get to understand that individual and to relate to it.
Yeah, it's really the whole rehab industry is formed around biomechanical function, and everything is trying to um, get that function going for whatever job they have to do or whatever. And I've come behind a lot of those big centers. They've been swimming and doing this and everything, and they're just basically compensating in a different way. And to the average person, it doesn't, look like it. They may have looked improved or whatever, but their potential is squashed. And down the road, that compensation is going to show up.
Well,
So,
and there's often repeat violations if
yep,
the root cause isn't cleared. And you're also saying that the root cause could be mental or spiritual or environmental. Like there's so many dimensions that we're not looking at a linear root cause. We're
yeah,
not looking at a horse that just injured himself.
right. So we address the nervous system architecture, uh, and that's it. And then once that nervous system is functioning, then the outward kind of you can add things in integratively to support that continuing full functioning nervous system, but they're not applied first. Does that make sense?
Well, it sounds like if you involve the nervous system to reintegrate itself, then healing happens
Yes.
more effectively.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Deeper, more permanent, more confident. Yeah. I love that.
yeah.
Any other questions, comments, you guys? I'm watching on Facebook. If you guys want to put your questions in Facebook, go ahead. And if you guys want to unmute yourselves and ask questions, feel free to do so. Mary Elizabeth, this was really interesting. You definitely got my mind like working and thinking about it. It's almost overwhelming to think about just the dynamics of action and interaction and reaction. And so it's
It is a lot, and it's a huge body of work. It's a new field, and I've had a lot of misunderstanding around it. People just don't, and that's what new fields do. They don't fit into containers, and I'm not taking it personally, or anything, but it is really hard to convey, in social media or wherever you are. Even owners who watch the process have this cognitive kind of like, okay, I don't know what it is or what you do, but thank you, and it's great, type
oh,
thing.
amazing. That's awesome. Janice, do you have any parting words? Let me change our view here.
I'm gonna not be able to sleep tonight because my brain is on overdrive. I'm so fascinated. I was just thinking of I watched this woman on Facebook whose horse was born at 286 days
Oh,
this year, and they initially were just going to let it go, but it kept living and living and living. And so they ended up bringing it to University of Tennessee to be rehabbed. And when you watched the rehab over time, they really paid attention to as many different aspects as they could from a scientific standpoint and from a developmental standpoint and from a musculoskeletal standpoint. But just watching it, you could tell that there were things missing.
right, right.
You could tell that energetically. So they did that, they put the horse in as it grew with other horses so it could learn, but there were just some things missing. And then they just tried so many different things, and the horse ended up being put down ultimately, but it
Yeah,
was
I see. So what you're describing there so often, I just think, wow, we really have to train practitioners to implement this work, for that missing part, and it lies within the nervous system function. That
And
it,
I mean, we see it in premature babies, we
yes,
we do
yes,
we do so I mean they have so much rehab, so much, early development systems and things like that. But the things that aren't brought in are the energetics and the
hmm
vibrations and the light energy, the things that really, I think, bring us to where we're supposed to be as human beings.
yeah,
I
and
think I think the rest of us have the capacity. We've just like over generations shut it down, but
yeah, and
but it's still there.
yeah, and you're just using the language right there of the nervous system. Vibrations, energy, light.
Yep.
Beautiful words that fill my heart up. But that is the nervous system is magical, and it's basically a new frontier. It has not been discovered in its
Well,
full.
and so when I was working at that breeding farm, I noticed that a embryo looked exactly like a seed germinating. And I was like, wow, the symmetry is so identical. There's so much similarity throughout all of nature.
Yeah, and that's my logo, Soma Spira, is
Oh,
that
it's the spine. Oh, and the spinal cord, the brain.
it's roots, and then the here I'll put it on this
And
one.
then Stacy's asking, is this a new process, not the method you were doing years ago?
Oh, Stacy. No,
Stacy Bradley.
it's the one I was doing years ago, but that was in its infancy for sure. Yeah, it progressed, and it was very emergent as far as it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually noticed that about your logo when I was posting in the Facebook group. I was like, oh, that's the
Yeah.
nervous system and a plant mimicking it. And so I knew that you got it. Yeah,
Yeah, it represents the ecological aspect of, environmental reciprocity within that nervous system development in all things. So,
very
yeah.
fun. Very fun. And Lee Black is saying she loves my new pup. And so he tends to say hello when he's over it. He's like, time to leave. Yeah. His
He knows
clock
when
ran
it's almost over.
his clock ran out. He hears
Yeah.
my voice change and then he's like, okay, we're almost done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then of course he has to demand my attention by picking up something inanimate and swallowing it. So I have to like stop everything to jump and pull it out of his mouth. Yeah. He finds things I like every time I come up here, I'm like, the ground looks good, everything looks good, and he'll still find something. Can you say manipulator? Yeah. Yeah, that's his neuro training on me. Yeah, he's training my nervous system. I I'm not training his. I think it might be a bad relationship, but we'll find out. Yeah. Any other comments, you guys? Janice, I'm glad you enjoyed this. I loved your input. Your additional comments really helped understand the whole aspect of this. So thank you.
So exciting. So
Thank
exciting.
you very much, Janice. It's always exciting for me to see this land and inspire somebody's mind and thoughts to make connections. I spent many years just kind of in silence with people not really understanding. And so whenever I can, see that spark,
Yeah, I
it's,
was a pediatric intensive care nurse for 40 years.
oh, well, there we
So
go.
I worked with the physical aspect. And as we worked with the physical aspect, we started bringing in more and more of the, it was an intensive care unit. It's a busy place, sick, very, very sick children. But it got to the point where we realized that we were doing as much damage as we were helping them. Just the basics of getting sleep. So we set it up so that, okay, the night nurses need to learn to work in the dark and arrange it so that, the patient gets blocks of sleep. And then I went to another institution, and when I asked the people not to wake my patient, they were like appalled because their work is a priority. And I'm like, no, and trying to explain that to people, trying to get across to people, no, we really have to conserve their energy too, and we have to pay attention to what we're asking of them as a human being and as a body and as a spirit. And it just, there were some people that it resonated with. It just it's getting there, the Reiki, bringing Reiki into the hospital is an important part of it, and bringing in the energetics. But there's just we have so far to go, so
Yeah,
far to go.
yeah,
That's such an interesting concept, Janice, because in the show horse world, they keep them under artificial light to keep a coat shedded out. And I really think it's a primary component to Cushing in horses because it's continual brain stimulation. It's
Yep.
packing over their natural aspect. And then there's detriment at the end of their life.
Because you're just stressing the adrenals, and they're never going to heal. They're always going to be stressed,
Yeah.
and that's such a huge. Oh my God, it could just go on all night.
I know. It's a fun combo. I really enjoyed this bit.
99% of the horses that come when I was heavily doing equine rehab or come in now, they're in adrenal fatigue,
Yeah.
hands off, right off the bat. So, and that's a non-functioning nervous system.
Mhm.
That's a nervous system. And so you have all systems involved with that, especially since I'm working with that autonomic system. So we have all the endocrine and yeah. So
Yeah, very cool. What a
thank
fun
you.
day. Okay, you guys, so that concludes our November. We'll have animal iridology practice class. I'll be December 1st next Monday. Can you believe it? And so, yay. And happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Enjoy yourself. Don't stuff yourself. I mean, if it's up to you, you can stuff yourself. You can do whatever you want. Just don't regret it. That's all.
Thank
It-
you, Poppy, for bringing all this together for people and all this work you do. And it's really,
it's quite
really.
a mind jam for everybody. And I mean, that's why Janice keeps showing up. She's like, she is a faithful person that shows up all the time with really fun comments. And
Well,
I'm shocked that Mary's not here. Where's Mary?
I don't know. It's like we need groups of people to do this. We need groups of people to think and discuss and openly, pursue things and be curious and be, fascinated. And it's there's just not enough of it in the world, and that's what keeps me going. But trying to find groups that do that is difficult.
Yeah, and it took me a while, like moving out of the academic circle. But there's a lot of postdoc and privately funded research going on right now, and I've found myself within that strain.
Oh,
That's
good.
and so we're not in the constraints of the usual constraints. So it's blossoming, Janice. It is.
That's very exciting.
Yeah.
If you know of anybody who just wants to talk to a nurse, just tell them.
Oh, I know. The
Nurse
most.
is a homeopath. Just
Yeah.
Yeah. Homeopathy is such a trip.
yeah.
I love it so much because
It
it
makes
does
perfect
take
sense to me.
it, yeah, and
Yeah.
it really takes the quirky manifestations and weighs it heavily.
Right.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful modality. I love it so much. But I also feel like, Janet, with this information, we could actually make our own energetic remedies and
Oh
use
yeah.
it on that person. Maybe they already do that. Maybe I'm behind the curve.
Oh yeah, they do. They do. People make remedies all the, they've made remedies out of parts of the Kabbalah. They've made remedies of golden spiral and the flower of life and the tree of life and the just the very core of existence.
But
You know?
the essence of trauma, like
Yeah.
there's a flavor and a taste and a chemistry to trauma, and to antidote trauma would be so interesting on a
Well,
home.
it's so measurable already chemically. And
Right.
then if you're using empirical observation too and have a tracking method, and I measure it posturally. A lot of people see my posture before and after photos and they see they're just not sure because they need to have the lens of what they're, oh, I see, thoracic, this, and I used to go down that road to lead people and then I just said, oh, forget it. It's just expression, but we can track all of this. There are signatures to it, like you're saying, which is
Yeah.
exciting. And you're talking sacred geometry there if you want to go to the fundamentals.
One
They're
that
actually
said,
mapping that in people's brains right now. The symposium I went to, like what went up on the screen and what they're able to technologically show what is happening. Even though I'm like, okay, they're going back in the brain, but it's pretty fascinating to see.
well, and trauma really blocks healing.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Biochemically, it's impossible.
Yeah.
It becomes compensation,
Yeah.
not yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Adaptation, but
Mhm.
compensation and then avoidance. And so then you're only living halfway.
Yeah, compensation has these arms, avoidance, adaptation. It has these, it's a it's a multifunctional guy. It isn't just compensate as not using one limb. It's multi-layered.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. The brain is so fascinating. Yeah, everything is the body itself,
Yeah.
whether it's the physical body, the mental body, the spiritual body, the dimensions that we don't even know about. So
Right.
very cool. Okay.
I see.
The end.
He's ready. He's like, I if he could put his hands up there and sign me off, he'd be like, click.
What a doll.
Well, thank you so much, Mary Elizabeth. I can't
Thank
tell you how much I appreciate it.
you very much.
And you'll get a copy of this. I'll send you the raw copy and the transcript, and you can use it however you want. And then I'll upload it to YouTube as content.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If there's anything you need edited, let me know. But I think it was all good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I dropped something midstream, but I think we'll be okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great Thanksgiving, you guys.
You too.
December's right around the corner. Black Friday. I think it should be White Friday. So,
It's
yeah.
all too stimulating for me. I stay away.
Yeah. Go enjoy your animals. Animal Friday. Animal Awesome Friday.
Yeah.
So, have fun, you guys. Enjoy the good weather. Bye.